Welcome to BAPS Better Living, conversations with Swamis from the BAPS Swaminarayan Sanstha. Today, we have an opportunity to hear from Pujya Priyasevadas Swami from the BAPS Sri Swaminarayan Mandir in Chicago. In our last episode on the 4 Purusharthas, we learned about the purpose of life and what our goal is. However, having a purpose is not enough. Once we have a purpose, we need to ensure that we maintain balance in our life as we move towards our ultimate goal. Let us learn how to maintain balance in our lives and live in a more responsible way. Pujya Priyasevadas Swami.
In our lives, we have become accustomed to believing that the best way to motivate ourselves and others is with external rewards like money, status, fame. In short, the carrot and stick principle. In the book Thrive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, the author Daniel Pink, he points out that people, they leave lucrative jobs to take low-paying ones that provide a clear sense of purpose. Now, we may ask, why would anyone do such a thing? Well, the answer is simple. Because clear and correct purpose gives gratification in our lives. To have happiness and gratification, we need to have a clear and correct purpose. The Hindu scriptures speak of 4 Purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Purposes of human life. Dharma is defined as righteousness and responsibility. Artha is the pursuit of wealth. Kam is the pursuit of pleasure and our ambitions. While moksha is liberation, the liberations from the cycle of birth and death, the liberation from our base nature. So we may ask, how do I go about attaining a sense of purpose in our life? Do I just select one of these 4 Purusharthas and then pursue it? Or do we select one and then go for the other and then the other? Or do we simultaneously pursue all 4? Well, in pursuing the 4 Purusharthas, we must understand that they are all connected to each other in a unique way. For example, if we choose to acquire wealth, which is earth, and pursue pleasure and fulfill our ambitions, which is kam, that is perfectly fine. But then the scriptures guide us by saying that it must be done along the path of dharma, which is righteousness and responsibility. Now, in our pursuit of wealth, if we do not follow the path of dharma, then instead of experiencing happiness, we feel sadness and a void in our lives. In our pursuit of kam, if we deviate from the path of dharma, instead of achieving gratification and fulfillment, we experience pain and emptiness. The pursuit of artha and kam is very tricky because it can take us on one of 2 roads. The first road of just hedonism, it will keep us wanting more and more. It will lead us to develop addictions. It will aggravate our base nature, bring us short-lived happiness, which then will be followed by feelings of grief, loneliness, suspicions and doubts, which destroy important relationships. Now the second road is one with dharma, balance and responsibility. It helps us enjoy all of God's gifts, allows us to experience fulfillment, and it does not deviate us from our ultimate purpose of moksha, but rather provides us with the resources needed to bring peace and gratification in our lives. The Hindu scriptures give us examples of how individuals that have pursued artha and kam while falling off the path of dharma. These pursuits have brought them grief and self-destruction. We can see that in the example of Ravan. He let his temptations get the better of him, which eventually led to him losing his kingdom and his death. Now Duryodhan, a wealthy prince who lived in a royal palace, he had immense wealth and power, but was not able to enjoy his wealth the least bit. He was intensely jealous of his cousins, the Pandavas. Whenever he heard their praises, he would lose sleep, he would lose his appetite, became angry and resentful. We can also see that today, when leaders stray away from the path of dharma, their initial ambitions of acquiring wealth to bring happiness and fulfillment are squandered. The leaders at Enron were considered the smartest guys in the room, captaining one of its largest energy companies. They pursued wealth, but their intentions were self-centric and deceitful. And because their intentions were not aligned with dharma, it brought them great tragedy. Now, on the flip side, we see individuals like Warren Buffett. He has also pursued wealth his whole life, but the principles of dharma guided his journey. Warren Buffett has acquired great amount of wealth, but when he is asked, he shares with us great wisdom. Once Warren Buffett said, if you are lucky to be in the 1% of humanity, you owe it to the rest of humanity to think about the other 99%. Now we see that his happiness is not from the fact that he's gotten so much wealth or the fact that he's remarkably successful. His happiness is there because he's acquired his wealth while keeping dharma in mind. He's following the path of righteousness and responsibility. Even today, being one of the world's wealthiest individuals, Warren Buffett, he lives an amazingly simple and meaningful lifestyle. We can see that in his advice that he gives to young people. He tells young people, stay away from credit cards and invest in yourself. He tells them, live your life as simple as you are. Don't do what others say. Just listen to them, but do what you feel good. Don't go on brand name. Just wear those things in which you feel comfortable. He tells them, don't waste your money on unnecessary things. Just spend it on what you really need. Don't give others a chance to rule your life. It's yours to live after all. Now, with all this advice that Warren Buffett gives to young people, we could see how simple and a meaningful life he lives. We also see that Warren Buffett feels the need to use his wealth in a responsible manner. He has a strong interest in philanthropy and is solving global health and educational problems. He's pledged 99% of his acquired wealth to various causes. Hinduism does not forbid the pursuit of arth and akam, but instead emphasizes their relevance in our day-to-day life, in concert with righteousness, responsibility, and balance. See, today man is unhappy not because he's acquired great wealth and or pursues pleasure, but because he has lost a sense of balance and responsibility. We can pursue wealth and pleasure, but it should not be without dharma. Today, wealth and pleasure are pursued at the expense of this planet, other individuals' basic rights, or just to get ahead while leaving everyone behind. Kate Raworth, in her book, Donut Economics, shares the idea that just focusing on growth is very detrimental. She shares us with a new way to see how wealth should be acquired and shared. For example, did you know that the famous board game Monopoly, it was originally called the Landlord's Game? It was invented by Elizabeth Magie, and it only had 2 sets of rules. The first set of rules were the prosperity rules. According to these rules, each player gained as one person would buy property. When the player who started out with the least money doubled it, everyone won. The second set of rules were called the monopolist rules. Players earned money by charging players who were unfortunate and landed on their property rent. Whoever managed to bankrupt everyone was crowned the winner. The game was created as a practical example of the difference between taking responsibility and bringing others up, or cutting them down with a winner-takes-all mentality. Just like the prosperity rules, we too should strive to pursue wealth to better the needs of society. We should ensure that our world is one where everyone has basic human rights, has food and clothing, and an opportunity to live in peace. So the pursuit of arth and kam, they are important, but it is essentially important to ensure they are pursued within the guidance of dharma. In the Srimad Bhagavad, there is a story of King Janak. King Janak conducted all the affairs of his kingdom. He brought great prosperity to his people. But even though it seemed that King Janak was focusing himself only on the day-to-day mundane affairs, the pursuit of wealth and ambitions, it was not the case. King Janak was called Videhi. Once, these 2 Brahmins were contemplating to ask the king why they called him Videhi. One, he did not trust the kings, as they would act hastily on their whims. The other had confidence in King Janak. He was the people's king, and he was sure he would enlighten them. The second Brahmin was able to convince the first. So they went up to King Janak and asked him, why did they call him Videhi? Soon as the king heard the question, he called for the guards. he ordered the two Brahmins to be put to death the next day. And as a final courtesy, the king placed the two Brahmins in the best room in the palace. He offered them a 7-course meal, but the Brahmins, they were too worried to eat or even sleep, even though they had the finest foods and the greatest comfort. Now the next day, the king called the two Brahmins, asked them if they had any final request. One of the Brahmins requested to be pardoned. He promised he would never ask such a question. King Janak, he agreed, but under one condition. They both had to carry 2 pots of water filled to the brim throughout the kingdom. Now, if one drop of water fell to the earth, the guards, they would wield their swords and cut their heads off. Now, the Brahmins agreed. They started their journey through the kingdom. In the kingdom, that day, there were great celebrations. A busy market, entertainers were entertaining on each street corner. The two Brahmins did not pay the slightest attention to any of the festivities. Their primary focus was just to ensure that the pots were balanced, to ensure that not even a drop of water would fall. They were successful. As they were brought in front of the king asked if they saw any of the festivities. They replied no. He asked if they enjoyed the food. They once again said no. The king asked why. Was the food not tasty? They replied, we were constantly worried that we were going to die the next day. We were worried what would happen afterwards. So even as we walked through the kingdom, we did not see any of the festivities. We were thinking of the greater picture, how to become free. King Janak smiled. He answered, now you have the answer. They call me Videhi because even though I have a great wealth and constantly enjoying the pleasures of a king, my mind is focused that tomorrow all this will be gone. I am focused on the greater picture. How can I be liberated from the countless cycles of births and deaths? How can I be liberated from my base nature? How can I connect with Paramatma, God? So the question is, even if we were to create a utopian society without any faults, would we have made the most of our opportunity as a human? Humans have the ability to think and share. They share their feelings, their experiences. While experiencing the present, we can also look towards the future. And looking forward brings me to my last point, that the purpose of our lives should not just be about acquiring wealth and enjoying ourselves. We have a greater purpose, and that is moksha, which we will review in our final conversation.